Hello and welcome to today's very special webinar. My name is Lisa Stewart and I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at 12D Solutions. During this live presentation, you'll be able to type your questions along the way, as shown on the screen, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the webinar. At the end, I'll also read out some of your questions to the presenter if there's time. Today's webinar, What's Coming in 12D Model 14, will be presented by 12D Solutions Managing Director and Co-founder, Dr. Lee Gregory. 12D Model 14 will be a huge new release for us, and today is just a sneak preview of some of what's coming. Lee will provide a brief outline of some of the upcoming new features and enhancements to whet your appetite, ready for the full outline at the 12D Technical Forum 2018 in July in Brisbane, where you can take home your very own technical preview version of 12D Model 14. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Lisa. Welcome everybody to a sneak preview of some of the things coming out in 12D Model 14. I won't be going into very much detail on the major new options in 14, as it would actually take too much time to do so. In fact, it'll take days to do it. The full gory details of those will be presented in the relevant Birds of a Feather sessions at the 12D Technical Forum in July. I'll also only be mentioning things that have already been done and already in the current alpha version of 12D Model 14. And I'm certain the feedback from our users of the technical forum who get the technical preview version will have lots of comments and lead to further additions. And there are a lot of other items still being worked on by the programmers, but they'll finish before the first release of 12D Model 14, which will be C1A, and in follow-up subversions, C1B, C1C as well. So this is just a taste of some of the things that are already in there, getting ready for the release. So first I'll just mention 12D Model 12 and how it was rolled out, because 14 will be similar. Basically, when people came to the conference in 2016, they were able to get the technical preview version, and so they could check that out before when we released 12D Model C1A. And the first place we release these things is on our forum, the 12D Model Forum. So if you're on there, you'll see it first, and the technical release version information will be up there as well. We then turn on the update checker. We usually leave that a little while just to see in case there's any real big problems, and we finally put it on our website. So if you really want to see these things early, then they're on our 12D Model Forum first. And we continue to update versions, such as with 12 we went to C1B, C, so on. There were bug fixes, because all software have bugs in them, so we fixed those. But we also add new features as well, and we put out summary reports on all those things. Some things we did add in C1A were things like ADAC 4.2, DWG 2018, 12D objects to Trimesh upgrade so we could do more things, an escape in the output window when it was applicable that you could use it, a pavement generator, some material attributes. So these are things that came out after we made the first release. Trimesh head walls in the Range.4D file. We have those little blue star on there for picking blue positions on views. The attribute manipulator, we add in extra things like string ID, model name, etc. With the Range 2D, we allowed a free of charge for 30,000 wet cells. So that came in after we released. Writing attributes to IFCs. So we do add in lots of things after the release. And we have brought some things forward from version 14 into 12. So delete empty models in hard code, because some people were getting some crashes with the macro version, so it's there in C1M. Wait for highlighting. View controls on menus, and I'll mention that a bit later on as well. IFC for user-defined property sets, and an IFC 2x3 step reader. And we also have the Australian rainfall and runoff 2016. So they were released and all are in version 12 C1M. So the boys had to work hard there to finish off a lot of those things so we could get them out often 12 months early. Also, for those people, remember there's also 12D View, and we did bring out a version C1M with that. So that's our free 12D model viewer. And so we've been working on that in the background to make things like registration and everything much better. You can use your existing 12D model nodes file and dongles. So if you've got that, you don't need to authorize machines as long as you get access to those dongles and nodes file. But you can register on any computer to use if you don't have a dongle. It opens 12D model projects, but if you haven't had the latest C1M, you don't realise you can also then create an empty project, so we can also read some data, not just 12D model project, but we can actually read in the 12DA files, 12D XML files, and also IFC 2x3 step files. So that all can be done in the actual viewer, which is free of charge. And these things can actually, those particular things we read, you can also drag and drop them onto the 12D view icon, and what it'll do, it'll create an empty project and then open up the options ready to read the data in. So actually 12D view is very, very powerful. 12D model 13. There is no 12D model 13. Call me superstitious or whatever, but we've just decided to jump over 13 and move straight on to version 14. So 12D model 14. With it, there's going to be a technical preview version, which will be for anyone who attends the technical forum, will be able to get access to that. So this is the final pre-release version, so we can just have a lot more people have a look at it and clean up any little things or things we've forgotten. And then 12D model 14 C1A, the first full release will be after that. It's usually about 1 to 2 months afterwards. So some of the major things will be coming, and we'll discuss some of these. The project settings, to say what they are. Model tree, another one I've mentioned. 12D field, combined pickup and set out. GDA 2020, I'll say what that one's all about. MultiPage Plots, so it's a major enhancement to the MPS in version 12. Also a lot of things for the BIM and the IFC world, some of which we've already put into 12. The drainage AR&R, which most of it's in 12, but there's always going to be extensions working on it. And TUFLOW using a GPU, graphics processing unit, to make it go much, much faster. But that's only available 64-bit versions. So there's some of the major things, but I'll start looking at much detail on and things that I can show you just fairly quickly, rather than going into great detail on the major ones, which will go at the technical forum in July. So we drag and drop, we continue to add extra things in there, like the DEM ASC files, ArcView shape files, map info mid and tab files, the 12D MPS file, which is for the MPS, for the plotting, that can actually now be dragged and dropped. And more of these will come as we work through the options and see it is possible to get a panel up with them. Another small thing is that now for your weights for strings, there is a pop-up with various values in there. Before, if you picked on it, you then went into a select mode and had to pick a string. So you now have the choice of picking from this list or typing one in, or using the same as before to pick an existing string and getting the weight from it. There's an option for thinning point cloud data. So we work with Brisbane City Council on this, so it's in there to try and weed out some of and make the point cloud much smaller. Segmenting strings, it's a panel that it's surprised with anyone's originally knew about it, but we've been using a lot now in our BIM work, and you can only do one string at a time. So this allows you to segment a whole lot of strings, basically putting extra vertices along the string on the segments. In 12D Model 12, we kept a list of the options used in a session, and when you had a crash and you sent us the crash log, we got it back. And that's been a fantastic thing for us to try and find bugs. We've been working very hard to eliminate as many bugs as possible, and this has made it much better than in the past. But in version 14, we actually keep that Options.txt file, it's saved for each run, and it's saved in a folder. So it's in where you're working folder. If you look in there, you'll have a thing called option_logs. It has information on all your sessions. So we'll be able to use that then to start seeing what options people are using. And basically that's just looking at one of the files when it's just all this information about what option you're firing up, how long you were in it, and so on. So it gives us a good rundown of what you've been doing, and it's been very helpful for crashes because then we know exactly what was going on. Because I can never remember. I have a crash, I can never remember what I actually did beforehand. Now, the first thing here is project settings. Now, this is a new option that's for when you have an existing project, you often want settings to be saved for that project. So although for a new project you may have some default values, these are the ones that get saved with the project as you work along. And it basically replaces the defaults.4d file, the water defaults, the CAD defaults, drafting settings, a whole lot of these where we had different files for them. And there's a whole lot of new settings that weren't saved before. So to get to it, you go under Project Management Settings, and up comes this Project Settings panel with a whole lot of areas. And this is being added to almost every day as we find new things that get useful to go into it. But for one thing, the first thing went in there. For if you were wanting to use Super Inquire, you had to have an environment variable. Well, here you can tick it on and then it remembers it, or you tick it off and it doesn't have it. And similarly, it also can remember the Inquire style. So you can keep changing the style and remember the last one you had, or you can change it to something else. Another thing you can tick on for version 14 is copy to clipboard. What this is, when you have a get up a string inquiry and you get that info panel, you can actually now, if this is ticked on, and you can do it on the string inquiry itself, all that information that comes up in the panel will actually goes into a clipboard, so then you can say copy and paste it all into, say, something like Notepad or something else. So it gives you a way of getting all that information that comes out of the Super Inquiry Information panel without having to retype it. Another new feature is this auto-save layout. And what this is all about is that when that's ticked on and a project is saved, the position and information for most of the menus and panels on the screen is also saved at the same time. And when you actually reopen that project, they'll actually be restored. So all the things that were able to save away in screen layout files will get saved and then start up again. So if you have that turned off, then it just comes up in your standard state. With this turned on, you should be able to exit out of 12D and come in, and most of your panels and menus that you had open at the time will still be there. There's settings for adding and removing models from views. Now, in version 12, this was there, and there's a whole lot of settings, but it used to work on everything that had this sort of new front end. What we've done now is you can set how you want things to come up, whether it's case sensitive, how it's searching, all those sorts of things. So you can set it just for using on the plus and the minus for adding or removing models to view. So you can also save these, what your settings you've got away as what we call save to select, so then you can pull them back in easily. Now, that's just for the plus and minus on the views. For other things like model boxes, tin boxes and function models, the data select allows you to set them totally separate. So the way you select things there by typing in may be totally different. Similarly, there's a separate one for the search bar. How you type things into your search bar, you just may want it to look for anything, everything, doesn't matter, not what it starts with, so on. So we've allowed for different ones there. So this just means those things can be saved differently for these different type of applications. Another new one there, because your on-screen keyboard and CAD are the things you would have seen before. The whole lot of new drafting settings are going in there. So again, you can change them for that particular project, and so it'll be remembered when you exit. Now these things are continuing on to other areas. We said that ways for highlighting was in V12 already, and also the control menu. I just want to show out what that is. At the end of your view buttons, there's one at the end which brings up this what we call a view control menu. And what this is all about is you can click on the buttons on it there and do it with your finger when you're out in the field on the tablet for moving the views around. So it's really not for people who are on a desktop, it's really designed for people on tablets out in the field on that, so they can move the thing around, resize the view, do all those things just by using this panel, so you don't have to have a mouse or anything to do it. These search settings we mentioned were they're only just for views only. We've also done a lot of speed up of drawings for true type font text. We're always working on trying to speed things up, and it's always interesting the things you can find you can do. Another thing is when you get up your view properties, favorites, positions, where we had yes, no's before, we've now added in so you can have tick boxes. It's much quicker just to tick something on and off and answer yes or no. Into perspective views, so these are just general things. When you create a perspective view, a new one, shade is now turned on, whereas before it wasn't, you had to keep going on and clicking it on. I always find if I've got a perspective view, especially the OpenGL one, I do want to see it with shade. That's the first thing I like to see. With the option joystick on a perspective view, a lot of people still use this. It's been around for ages, but it used to have a thing that when you moved your eye up and up and up, once it got to vertical, it stopped. If you had it in the continuous mode, it flipped backwards and forwards. We've unleashed that now, so you can go over the top of an object and over the other side. So you can just roll about and rotate it round and round and round. Also, with the middle mouse button, as you know, as you use your little wheel and wheeling on in, you're moving toward the eye towards your target, but there comes a point that's so close it would just stop. What happens now is if you get to that point, we go into what's called a travel mode where we move both the eye and the target forward. So you still can keep moving and then go back again. So again, often you go wheelie mouse in and it just seems to stop for some reason. You're going, why? But that'll help that one for you. And there's another new option on there called move over a tin. I originally called this walk on water, but I've changed it for political correctness. Basically what it is, it's like a string walk, but you select a tin, so you've got a height above it, so when you use your arrow keys to move around, it keeps that height over the tin. So it's really a great one for zooming over a ground surface and whatever, and so you go around at a constant height above a tin. It turns out to be very, very useful. Another little thing for the perspective views, I don't know how many of you have seen these red boxes, which are things what we call drawing density. Now, the whole idea of them is that when you get something's fairly small on the screen, if we replace it by a red box, it speeds things up. So that's the whole idea behind them. The whole problem is I've had a lot of trouble. I never seem to be able to figure out how to turn them on and off and whatever. So the programmers have taken pity on me. And say it's fantastic when you see it, but I often turn the darn things off and I often can't figure out how. But it's all to do with being, if it's too small, you don't want to spend lots and lots of time drawing it. So there's a new option. The actual option itself to set drawing density, there's one under settings, then there's one called drawing density, and it actually comes up, and this is where you can say, do I want to do it for point strings, line strings, all other elements, which would be things like trimeshes. And then you can give you sort of things about strings to how to control it. So that was okay. But we've added a new thing in there to explain why sometimes it wouldn't work for you. There's a choice there now because it was a three-way switch. And that what confused me totally. There's three choices. One is just to use the global settings, which you set with environment variables. The other one called view means that I'm going to use what I've set this for from the view. And the other one is to turn it off totally. So before I'd turn it off and we went back to global, I didn't understand, and global kept saying use the red boxes. So this should make it much easier for you. And so now, that's what the three choices are. So there's a new toggle called drawing density, and it has three choices. So basically there's a new one there, and you say if you pick view on, I'll select I don't want to see anything, and basically all your little red things that you've set for will disappear. So now even I'm able to use that. You'll also notice in this example though, my little fans up the top were actually cyan, and texture mapping is being applied, so I'm getting this darn texture on those fans. But again, to help you get rid of that, you just have to go and change either your colors or your mapping file. The number of things you have to do. So there's a new toggle called color texture mapping. It should actually be Trimesh color texture mapping. We'll get that corrected. So it's a new one on there, and basically you just have to click on that one, and again it'll stop all that colors and textures being applied. And it's often with buildings and things, you just don't want that to happen. Another thing we've added in there for you is that sometimes you want to see wireframes rather than the solids. So there's now a new toggle called Trimesh wireframe, and if you click on that, it makes it into a wireframe for you. So there's also extra things thrown in to make life easier, especially when you're working in perspective views, but they also exist on the plan OpenGL view. And that's where the wireframe you often want to see, because you can see what's going on there as well. So remember, it's both types of views. We've done something that people wondered why we never did in the first place, is we've combined the 12DA readers, so it reads all the different 12DAs, 12DAZs, 12DXML, 12DXMLZ for all the 4DAs. So this thing, the reader will be able to pick from any of those choices, and similarly it will be just the one option for writing it out, where you can choose any of those 4 different things to write it out. So instead of having to go to 2 different options, they'll all be rolled into one for the reader and rolled into one for the writer. Another thing is these anonymous functions. Some people like them, some hate them, and the moment to turn them off can be difficult because it does it for everything. All the panels that do create anomalous functions, these are the functions that when you read something in, it remembers all that information. So you can rerun them, and so it'll reread the file back in. But what we've done now, and all those ones that did have it, there's a little tick on there to say, do I create an anomalous function or not? So you can control it right at that level, whether you wanted it or not. With the CAD, there's a whole lot of dimension styles. We're adding in more and more overrides, which means you don't have to have a whole new style. You can just use an override. And again, there's some global changes in styles, global changes for leaders, global changes for tables. More and more people are using our dimensioning and things and leaders and tables, so we'll just keep adding things in. With the visualization, some people have Vism files, which is from a traffic simulation. So we've actually put a reader in there, which we'll start working with to see what really it needs. And basically it brings in all these, shows you what's happening with all these cars and trucks and other things. They can be big files. I think the first one we got, someone sent us, had 2 million lines in the file and 3,000 cars and trucks and buses. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Some more general things. There's a thing for data source on flip Trimesh faces. There was an option in 12 that allowed you to flip one face. This then allows you to flip a whole lot of faces for Trimeshes. And why do you have to do it? Well, sometimes you're reading some data, and depending on the orientation of the points in the triangle, it depends whether it says the normal's pointing out or in. And so that means whether it can be seen or not seen. So in the background, there's one there where the normal's going the wrong way. So it's saying the outside that's inside. And so that's how you see it. So if we flipped it all, then it'll turn into something useful. So it's when data comes in and it just hasn't come in correctly or someone hasn't set it up correctly. You can also create normals to Trimesh faces. And so you can see now in that example again that all the arrows are pointing out, meaning that's where the outside is. So if I'd shown it before, we wouldn't see the arrows because they probably would have pointed in. But anyway, that's another good one to try and find out what's going wrong with your data. Also, one thing, we had a Trimesh from Kin, but it just made it, you gave it a colour. You can now actually have a tick to say, I want to use the colour of the tin. So when you do such a thing, you keep the same colours, or you can, as before, don't do that at all and have it all one colour. You can also replace faces of a given colour by a different colour. So you might want to say, I want all the green faces in the Trimesh to go to cyan. That's what that option's for. You also, now with pins, you can actually colour by picking over a triangle, a bit like the nulling options. So there's a colour triangles by points. You can also do it by all the string ones, the same as the nulling, where you can draw strings or pick strings and colour. And also you can replace triangles of a given colour with a different colour, like you can do with Trimeshes. Now the attribute manipulator is being used heaps by people, and a lot of the options in there work for a variety of things, and it was a bit hard to know what it was because you had to go to the documentation. So now we'll have things like on the option, they'll say SS if it works for a superstring, tin and try for a Trimesh. So, and sometimes they'll say SS, tin, try, which means it works for all three. So you can see straight away which ones work for what. You can now get information about X, Y coordinates. You can always get Z, but this is the X and Y, and even set them. So you can actually get the values out to an attribute, or use an attribute to set those values. You can get in some of these ones are in V12, the creation and modification date of an element and its ID, the vertex properties, the X and Y coordinates, and also its point ID. I've actually repeated that, sorry about that. You can get the 2D area of a tin, a 3D area of a tin, the base color of a tin, segment properties like line styles. In 12, we introduced where you have different segments could have different line styles in the string. This just allows you to get access to it from the segment attributes, and you can also use it to set the line styles from attributes on a segment for the line style. And so model name and string ID, a whole lot of things for Trimeshes, the various properties, surface area, volumes, and so on. We just keep adding them in as people ask and say, oh, this would be a good idea. Can we get the value out or set it? Chains, we keep adding things on chains. The simple ones we put in there that you can check for view favorites. It should have been view positions, write out view favorites, write out view positions, test if a 12DX is 64-bit or 32-bit. We find we need that at times because some things can't work on 32-bit or only can work on 64-bit. So before we test things, we need to know which way. Test if a tin is shared in, things like that. Test if the models are shared in, and read in a 2D PDF. Again, we just keep adding things there as people ask for them. The Super Inquire, this is the thing that shows you information when you pick things. The creation date of element can now have the modified date of an element, the style of the Super Inquire save, which we went through before for each project, which the style and whether it's on or off a save for the project which you went. Tapping on the panel is now an accept. We added that in and got into version 12 as well for the people out in the field, the surveyors who just want to tap to say it's acceptable. A new thing that's coming out with 14 is a thing called Model Tree. It's not just for models, but we've called it that. So at the moment when you get a pop-up list of models, it's just a long list like that. What happens with Model Tree is you're able to say, well, it's not just one name for the model, but you can use basically a full path name. So you can use forward slashes to make the name of it. So then it'll collect things together. And you can add and remove them. So you can add a whole group of things, like all the tin create roads, the whole lot to a view, rather than all the things that are under it. And there's one for tins as well, and there's also one for functions. So it isn't just for models, but we just start off calling it that. So the trees can be viewed as a tree, or you can still have them come out as a flat form. The slash character is used to denote the various levels of it, just like we do in attributes, same idea. And every model, tin or function box will be able to show that tree on the pop-up. Map files support the model tree. The pre and post for map files also works. The XML supports model tree, and also the 12 ASCII readers and writers support it. If you've got a non-model tree version, because you can have it or not, then if it's got a slash in it, it'll convert it to spaces on import. The entire model tree path is its name. So things like ABC/Fred is different from XYZ/Fred. So it's the whole path just so it's different. So you can add or remove the whole for an entire branch. Some panels may be restricted to only as a flat list. So we'll work through that. And when you do have model tree, we don't save the model as actually the name of the model as we did as the file name. We actually give it a weird name for the file, and the name of the model itself is inside that. So that means it's a fixed length. It's only, say, 18, 16 characters or whatever that thing is, which means if you've got very long model names, it doesn't make it, you're using up more characters for the path name to the file, because Microsoft has those crazy restrictions of 256. So you often find when you get things down very deep these days, you just can't pick files because you've gone over Microsoft's limit. There's a special thing for anonymous functions, which some users love and hate, and what it does in that case, it groups them under the various types of things. So you see your read GenIO data is under read GenIO data, read XYZ. So it's grouped them much better for you. Another thing we have to be aware of in Australia is GDA 2020 or MGA 2020. GDA is the model of the Earth, MGA is our coordinate system. So back here we moved in about year 2000 from AMG 66 to MGA 94. So that was a big change. So we're all pretty well using MGA coordinates. These things are northings now here in Australia. But there was one small problem, and that's continental drift. Because if you think about it, the 0 for longitude is fixed at going through Greenwich. So London always stays at 0 longitude. But we're moving about 7 centimetres per year to the northeast up towards the equator. So that means our longitude and actually the latitude are changing every day. It changes by the amount that your fingernail grows each day. So you think, oh, that's not very much in a year. But basically, since 1994, we've moved by 1.8 metres. So when we have an MGA coordinate, it's actually 1.8 metres out from the current longitude latitude. So that's what this GDA 2020 is all about, that we're going to have to move coordinates from GDA 94 to this new where it's going to be in 2020. And they're actually doing it now, or starting to do it. We're thinking, oh, this is where it's going to be in 2020. So there's two methods for Australia. There's a thing called a 7-parameter similarity transform. It's a 3D helmet in a special coordinate system, and it takes longitude, ellipsoid heights and maps them across. Now you won't see that because we convert the data from the coordinate system into long lat and then out again. But basically, you'll see it needs ellipsoid heights, and most people don't have that. The other thing that's available is this thing called an MTV2 grid, which is a grid of how the longitude and latitudes go, and you don't have to worry about your ellipsoid heights. So that thing is what they're now starting to release those, and that's what most things will people will use. So you just have your long lat, and then your height will be in AHD, because that will stay the same. Both of these methods are available in 12D Model 14, and what we've done, if you're on maintenance, we're making it part of the base, whereas most of these things are part of the survey module. If you're on maintenance, these ones will be in the base so everyone can use them. 12D field, this is a big one, and really we'll go through the technical forum in July in great detail, but what we've done is we've merged 12D field, because we had set out and pick up, and they were two totally different things. We've now been bringing them into one, merged into one package. So it's going to have a new look. It's got a more compact 12D field bar. There's common now station setups and things for between the two packages. So we've just made it now so it does work together. And so I won't say too much here because it's just for 12D surveyors, but there's two types of pickups, the basic pickup that was in the set out method, then the SDR pickup which came from the 12D field pickup. So both of those are available to anyone at any time. So we've combined things, added a whole lot of different options in there, so it looks much better and easier to use and just works. So the pickup format, there's a new function for creating it. You can use your existing functions, it converts them. You can load in favorite code lists. And the SDR pickups, which are the ones that use in 12D field pickup, all those things are sort of there, plus there'll be a lot of other bits and pieces. So I think you'll have no trouble. It does everything it did before, but hopefully in a combined way. And hopefully, as we say, the panels are much more friendly. And all your favourite things for pickup are still in there, your zigzags, opcodes and so on, they're all still available to you. As I said, any birds of a feather in July, we'll be going through this in a lot more detail. So you can use all of these things at the same time, which again was hard because one of these before was in set out, this basic pickup, and the other one was in the in pickup. So you can just mix and match. One new thing there too is a segment set out panel. That was not available before, so you can use 2 points, use a string segment and so on. So again, it's been there been asked for people for in the set out side. In survey, just straight survey, we have been adding a lot of extra things there. We've been working on a lot of bits and things. They're working on the network adjustment. So you'll see more work on there again at the conference. We'll go through it in great detail. There's been a whole lot of little bits and pieces done in alignment in the MTF. There's been a big speed up in the running of snippets. We're also working on the general stuff as well, because I talked about MTF on steroids, so I hope that will all happen. A lot of the options have been there, and a lot of people haven't caught up with it. So we haven't added too many new things in the MTF itself. But certainly we have added some, but I think most of you probably aren't up to the level that we're at for 12. So this will give you a chance to catch up. We've got things though, you can have a table of your horizontal geometry segments. When you solve something, it breaks up into little segments. You can now actually get a list of those. And when you read it from some other packages, that's all you get, say from Land XML. And so this goes, at least you can see what the segments are to make sure they're correct. Because you don't have anything to make a proper alignment out of it. It's just made up of a whole lot of segments, both in horizontal and vertical. So they're in there as well. There's another option which was actually in 12 and a lot of people have been using it called Pavement Manager, and we've continued to update that for version 14. So this is the one that allows you to really create nasty sort of things, subgrades and pavement layers underneath the road, almost to any complexity. Peter Tatum has been doing most of this, has been working with a lot of users and just adding things that people come to in real life. It's one of those things that's real life is the best way of developing it. On the water side, one thing you'll get thrown by is the drainage sewer string will hopefully be no more called that, it's going to be a water string. And basically you'll see on the design menu it says water services, because a lot of people use the string for services, not just drainage or sewer networks. And the other thing is that nodes, the word nodes will replace pit or maintenance hole, and link will replace pipes. Now this is because nodes, now they don't have to be a pit or a maintenance hole. It could be all sorts of things. There's in the water supply area, so it's a bit more general. And again, a pipe, well, it could be an open channel. It could be all sorts of things as well. So we just made it a bit more general, so it makes a bit more sense. And you can see on here, we're still working on it. It still says drainage properties at the top. They'll become water properties. So we are working through the code to try and change them all over. Some extra things are in there that you can display the node HDL. You can run an option that will show its levels so you can see it in 3D. And you can also do for the link HDL in 3D. So people might want to see that, whereas before most people just looked in the section view. You can now see it in 3D. With the nodes, or the old pits or maintenance holes, before we had round or rectangular, you can now have actually extended nodes. These are the ones that are like an oval. So if you actually tick that on, when you have a rectangular pit and you have base extender turned on, then your width determines the radius at the end. So this is the sort of thing you're able to get. So they're actually been added into version 14. We've also added risers in the water strings. So if you click on risers, it'll probably be a little bit different when you see it. So you basically have the base, the bottom of your pit, and then you have this riser going to the surface. So there's all information. Again, it can be circular, rectangular, or it can be extended, and you can place it and then position it from the center of the manhole. So you can do whatever you like there. So you're producing these sorts of things. So that's all going to be available for you in 14. We're also working on our set out diagrams for nodes. So it's underway. So basically taking all your data and producing all these diagrams that some of the people have asked for set out purposes. So that should be there before we release. You also can have user-defined house controls. We only had 6 before. You now actually can have your own and make them up. So we draw them much better in 3D as well than before, and a lot more ways of setting them, and more settings for controlling them. So all those who are after more definitions for your user-defined for house connections, you can now have as many as you like. Australian rainfall and runoff, I won't say too much about this. This came out in C1M for people, version 12 C1M. This is a new standard which some people are starting to use. The thing is now you got to look at 10 storms instead of 1 storm, and you have to look at the critical thing for those storms. But for everything you're looking at, you look at the critical. So the things you're going to get, flows, all that, they can come from all different storms. So it's an interesting thing, and people are starting to come to grips with it. We can draw plots and things just like we did before, except for these ones. So what you get is you usually get like your 10 storms, and we show the ones in the middle so you can see what's going on and which ones are being picked and so on. And again, you get heaps more storms. So all the information you saw before, it's now also available in the IRNR 2016. As I said, it's in C1M now if you've got the dynamic drainage module and on maintenance, and we'll keep increasing or anything else that comes up, because the IRNR 2016 still is a work in process, the document itself, so they're changing and we'll change our software with it. So as I said, it's been released and you can get it now if you've got the dynamic drainage analysis module and your maintenance for C1M. There's also an industry webinar that Rob gave on that, so if you want to see a bit more about it, jump on there, and I think you'll be able to run it just by looking at this webinar. We've also got the GPU, that's the graphics processing unit. The TUFLOW can use that for calculations. It is another module, and for some things it can speed up things by a factor of 10 to 100. So it just depends what you're doing, whether or not it's going to be applicable to you for getting those large TUFLOW runs through in a better time. Now, PPFs, parameter files, and MPS. Let's have a bit of a look at what we've been up to there for you. One little thing someone asked for is putting the line style legend for the cross-section plane. We did on the long section, but we didn't do it for the cross-section. That's actually now in there. You can have gaps in your upright, so you can define gaps, stop and start points, so you can sort of leave gaps wherever you like in the along a row of the cross-sections. There's also a fixed datum that's available now in cross-section plotting, so gaps and uprights we showed. We can also pre-calculate the number of pages that there will be. So you can actually do that and run it beforehand, but we then know how many there are, so we can say I'm doing 1 of 37, 2 of 37, and so on. You can also put the uprights so they're drawn at the back of the plot. Now some people, because it was in the front, often it was cluttering other things, so you can set whether you want the uprights to be drawn to the back to the plot. Similarly, the long sections, we're going from a super alignment to alignment. We found there are a couple of things that the super alignment missed, and so one is being able to set the uprights at the end of the vertical geometry in page changes. So you used to do that with the alignment string. And again, you can allow gaps in uprights as well on the long section, and you also can pre-calculate the number of pages and also put the uprights at the back of the plot. And the thing there for origin, which was ignore when pagination was off, so if you're doing just one sheet, that now actually works for it. We also have a lot of places where the inclusion exclusion mark can have wildcards and things in it. So over here as an example, you can have star, OK, star. So there's a lot of places now that you can use wildcards, whereas before you couldn't. Now PPFs, the plot parameter files, you never had to write one out, but the file box itself always didn't show it was optional. So people thought you always had to type something in. So we've now made it so it's greyed out, showing it's optional, since you don't have to have it there. You can also now turn off drawing registers, so you can turn them out without having to get rid of the whole thing. And on the drainage long plot, you can now label nominal sizes. So just a couple of bits and pieces. There's now an option to actually delete PPFs, plot parameter files, so it's on the menu, and basically then goes and lists all the different PPFs inside your project, and you can select as many as you wish and then delete them or just delete them all. Because you couldn't see these, they were hidden away, so these you would get more and more of them. So this allows you to actually get rid of them from inside 12-bit model. The title block variables, we've had a new one in called $end_page number. Now, because we now can calculate how many pages there are in a long section or a cross section or a drainage plot, you can actually have then in your title block $end_page number, and so it works it out for you. So you can say 1 of 27, 2 of 27. You can also still use your start page number, so it adds that onto it, so that calculates how many pages there are and adds that to the start page number to give you your end page number. So a lot of people find that much easier. And that's the other one, is the calculated number of pages. That's the actual number of pages, where the end page number adds the start page number to it. The username is now a title block variable, so you can put that in there. Model attributes, string attributes, project attributes, they all now can be in your title block. And you can have multiple time formats. Before you just have one, whenever you put $time, it just took the one time for your PPF. Now when you put $time inside your title block file, you can put the time format in there. So you can have as many different ones as you like with many different formats. Another interesting thing, I need to show a slide of this, that on your PPF thing, you have your area where you can, it shows your user text and where you got its name, like main title and things, and you could type something in there. And you used to be able to just type text. What you can use now is you can put $variables in there. So where it says sheet there, you can see I've got page number of total number of pages. And so when you plot, it comes out. So virtually all those title block variables can also now be typed in there, so you don't have to go and add them, keep changing your title block file. They can just be typed in as text when you go to run it. We also have a new thing called a perspective plot PPF. You've only been able to do perspective plots before by going to the view. There's now a PPF there which controls things like margins, user-defined title blocks, view or use a view favorite, so you can use the favorite so you don't have to have a view anymore. And you can change the background color, and the high resolution factor, which allows you to get more pixels, so if you're doing a big plot, it can make it much more not jaggedy looking. And so in this case here, I've got perspective view. I've just created with a simple title block on it. Now, multi-page plots. This we had an MPS in version 12, but it's been a total rewrite, and we've now called it multi-page plots. So we're no longer using the word sheets. So it's basically the V12 one on steroids. And this time it's all displayed as a tree name with 3 levels: book, chapter, and page. So you've got your book, and you can give these different names. It's not going to be called book. Then you have chapters. Then you have pages inside a chapter. And so you can move a whole chapter up and down. The pages all go with it. So also you had in V12, you had title blocks. You could put frames, plan, long section, and cross section. We could put one cross section, and also text. They're also in V14, but we've also had one called symbols. So you can place symbols there, models. So with a PPF file, you could have up to 3 model names. Here you can then use as many of them as you like. And also there's a thing called special chapters. I'll come back to that in a sec. So the hierarchy of the book, chapter and pages means that you can put some text at the book level and it'll be on every page on every chapter. You can put something on the chapter and only then works for every page in that chapter. Or you can just put it on a page, things like that. So it makes it very easy then to, if you want a title block for everything, the same title block, you can just whack it on the very beginning, the book level, and that's it. One place is all you have to do it. You change it there, it changes everywhere. But there's also overrides for all these things. So basically, you can have a title block, but then on one particular page you can say, I don't want to use that title block, or I can substitute a whole lot of values for it. I don't want to use that symbol, I want to use a different one. So you can have these overrides, what we call referencing. So basically the thing here, we've got frames at a book level and pages and chapters and so on. So you can really start doing things and start controlling your plots quite a bit. Down the left-hand side here, you see left side icons. These ones now change depending on what you're doing. So it's showing the options that do work for the thing. So it makes it easier. So in case here, when we clicked on book, chapter and page, only the chapter or page had the cross on there. You can't delete a book. Things like that to make it so you don't have to learn very much to run the thing. The order of the drawing items in the tree, it's relative to a page and within a page. So basically what the order is determines the drawing. So if something's like a model is before a particular page, it gets drawn first before the information on the page, and there might be a model later on which then would be drawn last. So an example here, if I had a model called draft only, I'm going to place that as a model, and I'm going to put it at the end, in the book level at the end, what will happen is they'll be plotted last for everything. If I had another model, say, called watermark example, and I put it at the top of the tree, it will then draw first, so everything will draw on top of it. So the combination, I've got a watermark and then draft only at the top, so the watermark gets overwritten. So basically, you can got all that sort of control with this tree. So it's very, very, very powerful. Now there's a special chapter, and I'll just mention that. What it's all about is you can have a cross-section, long section, and drainage long section special chapter. And it basically takes a PPF file, and it then works out that chapter, depending on, say, your start and end change for your cross-section. I need 37 pages, and it just automatically does it. You don't have to worry about anything. So for this particular one, I've done a cross-section special chapter, and in that you say your start and end change. And so it calculates and knows how many pages it needs. You never have to worry about it. And of course, the MPS text variables like $current page and $total pages automatically adjust for these special chapters. So basically you can still have a $total pages in there, and it doesn't matter how many of these special chapters in there, it'll still know the correct number. So it allows you now with these special chapters to include pages of cross sections, pages of long sections, pages of drainage long sections and so on, rather than just the individual ones. BIM, our old favourite. We're learning more about this every day. So, and it's your feedback. We keep wanting your feedback, so I think everyone's in the same boat. We're learning more and more about it, and we'll keep putting things in as we learn. Whoops, my mouse is stopping. Here we go. The first thing, though, a lot of people are using ADAC, which is from the Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia, and it reads and writes BIM data. It's one of the first things in Australia that's being used widely for that sort of thing. It has bits and pipes and maintenance holes and so on. And we supported ADAC 4, 4.1 and 4.2 in C1M, but there's an ADAC 5 which is just being finalised now, and it'll be supported in 14. For BIM, a lot of things, most tri-meshes go out to BIM quite happily. Most of people, systems support tri-meshes, so they're all BIM objects. A lot of things don't support strings, so we have to turn them into basically types with a diameter, but that's the package's problem. BIM shouldn't care about that. Most probably extrudes go out to BIM, so anything that's an extrusion you can say is BIM. Our 12 tri-meshes from 12D objects allows us to create tri-meshes, lots of things as well that don't naturally go out. And we're introducing other things like we've got to create traffic lights as a tri-mesh. So instead of before where it might have used billboards and things, this is creating a tri-mesh so it can go out, made up of lots of different parts. Fences. Extrusions will go out, but we're also creating special things as trimeshes, and often to get the count down. So these examples here are all actually trimeshes. The Pavement Manager, which is in 12 and also in going to 14, it creates trimeshes for all your pavements and things. So they're all can go out the bin. Here's an example where we picked up information from a tunnel boring machine of the actual rings that's produced and all the information about them. We've color-coded them depending on the information collected. So they're all there as trimeshes. In this case, we brought them in and created trimeshes, so for bin data. But we've got things for creating special pits and things in all sorts of ways, so they then go out to bin data, and things along a string. So there's lots of things in 12D Model, we just keep adding to them, create what we call bin data. For OpenBIM, what you're supposed to be using is IFC. That's the Industry Foundation class. So that's the standard, so you're supposed to be getting raised from proprietary formats, and we put that into version 12D Model 12 C1M, the step reader. I won't explain what all that is, but if you've got C1M and you're on maintenance, you will be able to read, not just produce IFC 2x3 files, but also read them in. So we brought that forward from version 14. And there is an industry webinar on that. There's 2 webinars on BIM, so go and have a look at that because you can all read them in now. And we've started doing training courses on that, which we'll start doing as people want them, on creating BIM data, reading it, writing it, and so on. A few of the IFC 2x3 examples, like these ones from ArchiCAD. So they've come in from ArchiCAD and being displayed in 12D Model. Because once it's inside 12D, you can use all your things like sectioning through it and section view. All those things that's often hard to do in the other packages. There's one here, I think on the left might have been from a Bentley product, and the Vectorworks is the one on the right. So we're trying to get examples and try them out to make sure they all work. Big thing is people are after the user-defined property sets, and we actually add this back in to 12. This is where you can select what attributes you want to go out with your thing going out to BIM. You put them in a group, and so in this case here, running the attribute manipulator, so it's going to create an attribute called depth under 12D/BIM/pavement depth. So we're set into a special spot, and this is actually in 12 C1M. You can say, I want to use the IFC attribute 3 name, and you're going to use IFC/BIM. So look underneath BIM, and any groups underneath that will actually be written out with that name of the property sets that when they go out to IFCs. So it gives you a lot of control there, and we again put that in C1M for you. So in this case here, we've written out that data, and this has been the 12D data loaded up into Solibri. You'll see there's a property set called 12D Model, and one called Pavement. If we clicked on Pavement, you'd see things like depth and stuff that we wrote out to it. So you can get all that sort of data across to your BIM systems. And that's already in our V12 C1M. What we're working on and will be in 14, it may sneak into C1N, the version 12, is this global ID retention. So this is when you create a global ID, which is a unique identifier. We want it when you write out the data 2 or 3 times, it keeps that same global ID. So when we write it out, we can create the global ID, then save it as an attribute, if you wish, of the object. And when you write it out in the future, it will reuse it. And when we read in some data, we put the global ID in an attribute. So when we write it out, we keep the same thing. So we should be able to get around that problem of systems that need this global ID whenever you get the data to be the same thing every time. We're adding for IFC, we have 2x3 already in 12, but we're the 2x4 and the 4x1, they're all going in there, and the readers and writers. And in the IFC 4x1, that actually has alignments and tins in it. So don't let anyone tell you about the BIM. They're now starting to finally get into having all the civil sort of data. So here's an example which we did for because we're part of the consortium, the IFC, and go to the Building Smart International forums where we work out what the IFC should be. So here's some data read out in 4x1 and read back into 12D. So it's written out strings, alignments, and tins. And so that's the data where we've just again then shaded it to show, yeah, it was a tin. So all that stuff is coming, and we've been working with the international community on that. Right, so we're almost there for documentation. We're going to have what's new in 12D Model 14 summaries, and you've seen these things with version 12. We've got that summary list like often we give it out by dates and also by components, so you can see exactly what's in each version, C1A, C1B, and so on. Or we do one that they're all combined. There's also already a What's New in 12D Model PDF, just like we had for version 12, and it's up to about 350 pages now, so it's been added to. And of course there'll be updated reference manual. We're trying hard to get everything into the reference manual. There's also an upgraded programming language manual because we've got a whole lot of new macro calls we're putting out. And the getting started for design, the data for that is installed with 12D, so we'll be updating the manual for that. And also the getting started for surveying. Again, the data is installed for that, so the data's already there for you to run those two manuals. And what we've done inside 12D model on the help, we've actually now added in, so you always had, you could get the 12D model reference manual, which is also our onboard help. When you hit the F1 key, it goes to that. The programmer's manual, or macro manual, we still call it, is there, but we've now added in for 14, it'll have the What's New PDF, so you'll be able to get that and have it installed, so you don't have to go and download it. The What's New summaries, the final ones, they'll be upgraded in there, so you can get them, and also they're getting started for design and surveying. So they'll all be installed with 12D model, so you don't have to go elsewhere. There's a lot of things now, it's being downloaded for the web, it just means you don't have to go there. They'll be on your system when you install. Right, now of course, you know about 12D Synergy version, or 12D Synergy, hopefully you've all purchased it. It'll make your life so much easier for lots of things, but they've got a whole lot of things, and their version 4 is going to come out at the same time as 12D Model 14. And the only thing I'm going to mention is there are a number of things in there. We obviously keep the two products working closely together, and so they've been adding things into better 12D model management into 12D Synergy 4. So you can have a thing like a 12D model project templates, which sets up what files, folders that you created when you create a 12D model project. There's a whole lot of information. You can offline many projects, check your many 12D model projects, and there's a lot more integration on the plotting and stuff like that, root registers and NPS and so on. So we're keeping the two products working really well together. So when you go to 12D model 14, 12D Synergy 4 will be able to work happily with it and give you a lot more features as well. Right, the release. The 12D, well, the first thing is again, there'll be a technical preview version available to all the people on maintenance who attend the 12D Technical Forum, which is in July. The 12D Technical Forum is the new name for 12D Conference. So basically, if you've been to a 12D conference, this is the thing, it's the 12D Technical Forum. And the idea is those people then, because at the conference will go through things that are in 14, then you can get this technical preview version and start looking at it and give us feedback on that. Because it's still a pre-release testing, and so you can often get things then put into the version before it is finally nailed down. So that's the first part of it, so that's just a pre-release. And then 12D, the full schedule release to come out, which will be 12D model version 14, C1A. C means it's the release, 1A is the very first one of it. It should be hopefully 1 or 2 months after that technical preview version's been out there, so we can get the feedback and put it into it. Then we'll come out down the track over the next couple of years with C1B, C1C and so on. The 12D Technical Forum, you can go to our website, it's got information about it. There's a typical bunch of happy people that come along. We usually have 300 or 400 people at these things. We have talks by people in industry about projects they've done in 12D model and 12D Synergy, or both, one or both. Birds of a feather, for those who have never been, this is where we break out into 4 different sessions so we can concentrate. So the design ones, and half our time's in these sessions. So design, they go through nitty-gritty, just on design stuff. Survey, on survey. The waters, for the various things in water, and the 12D Synergy. So you can go in and get really detailed information. Whereas when we're all together, for the other half, we're talking about more general things that everyone's interested in. And there will be technical talks on both 12D model 12 and 14, because although a lot of people won't go to 14 straight away, and there's lots of things we added into 12 that you probably don't know about, because they've gone into later versions that you might have had. There'll be talks on 12D Synergy. There's a welcome event on the Sunday night, the first night, where we all can get around and talk and discuss things. There's a conference dinner on the next night, the Monday night. And then finally it has the Innovation Awards as part of it as well. And there is an exhibition area where we have various vendors. Most of the survey people have a stand there with all their equipment, and we have stands ourselves, so you can come and ask questions of our staff. We have them manned, people for design, plotting, and so on. So there's a lot of great information you get there. Do not come if you're expecting to play golf or do anything crazy like that. We go from beginning dawn to dusk, and it's all on 12D model and 12D synergy. It's a real technical thing. So if you want to have an easy time, don't come to our conference. It's on Sunday the 29th, Monday the 30th, and Tuesday the 31st of July. It's the Brisbane Convention Exhibition Centre as it was in the past. It's $880 plus GST, which makes it $880 including GST, and that includes the welcome event and the conference dinner. But you can register just for 1 day or 2 days, and you can have extra people come along to the welcome event and the conference dinner. To register, you just go to our website, www.12d.com, and click on that button I showed you before. And yes, you can pay with online credit cards. So we do that, or we can issue an invoice. Either way, we can look after you. Right, well, thank you very much for being with me. Alan and I and the whole 12D team look forward to seeing you at the 12D Technical Forum so we can go and show you things inside 12D Model 14. And if you come to the forum, you get to play with it in advance so we can get your fantastic feedback as well. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Lee. We're a little over time, so I think we'll get back to people who've asked questions by email. The recording of today's webinar will be available on our 12D Model YouTube channel in coming days. We've got a couple of great industry solutions webinars coming up, 12D Model Modules, a brief overview on the 31st of May, and Lee will be back on board for the 12D Technical Forum full preview on the 6th of June. So if you haven't registered for those, pop on and do that on our website, and keep an eye on our emails and social media channels for more great upcoming topics. If you need to contact us in the meantime, our details are on the screen now. That concludes our presentation for today. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to see you at future webinars.